So in this video, I'm going to be talking about the Passe composé versus the Imparfait. So just a little bit of an overview. We're going to start by reviewing the Passe composé and when to use it. And then we'll be doing the same thing for the Imparfait. And then finally, we will get into examples. So what is the Passe composé and when it is used? So you use it when you are talking about completed actions, repeated actions, or both. And a really helpful thing to know is that you always use it to describe sudden actions. And it's a really important tense to know just because it's the most used past tense in the French language. And you should probably already know this, but there are different ways to conjugate the passé composé, and it depends on whether or not it's an IR verb, an ER verb, or an RE verb, and there are also irregular verbs that you need to remember. So what is the imparfait and when is it used? So it's a type of past tense and it's used to express actions that take place over a period of time, conditions, repeated actions, or descriptions. So a really helpful acronym to remember is right over here. It's called date law. So you have description, age, time and date, emotions and feelings, location, actions repeated in the past, and finally weather. So whenever you have a sentence that is describing any of these, you know that that is a time when you're going to be using the imparfait. So now we'll get into talking about some examples. I have this slide and then another one after this with a few more. So first one is I drank a lot of coffee, and in French that would be j'ai bu beaucoup de café. And as you can see, you're using the passé composé here, and that is because it's an action that is in the past and it's already been completed. So second example is I was talking to my friend on the phone, which is j'ai parlé à mon ami au téléphone. And when you have was, that's a really good indicator that you're going to be using the imparfait. So in French, you have je parlais à mon ami au téléphone. And yeah, so it's a pretty easy one just because there's was and it's describing an action that has not been said to have been completed. So third example is when I was walking in the park, it started raining. So in French, you have quand je marchais dans le parc, il a commencé à pleuvoir. So in this example, you have two conjugations. The first one, when I was walking the park, that is the imparfait for the same reason as number two with the was. And the second part of this sentence, it started raining. Il a commencé à pleuvoir. So that's a action that has already been completed. It was a one-time thing because it can't start raining multiple times. The next example is she had a dog. Elle avait une chienne, and this is just describing a condition. So that's why you would be using the imparfait. The next example is when I was young, I played basketball. And again, you have two different conjugations, and you can see that they are both using the imparfait. So whenever you're describing something of like when you were young, when you were little, you're going to use the imparfait. So quand j'étais jeune, and the second part, I played basketball, j'ai joué au basket. So it hasn't been indicated that this action has been completed. So that's why you're going to be using the imparfait. And the second to last example is they did their homework after dinner. So ils ont fait le devoir après le dîner. And this is a completed action. They finished or they did their homework after dinner. So you're going to be using the passé composé. And then the last example is he went to school every day. Il allait à l'école tous les jours. So that's a repeated action and it hasn't been indicated that it's been completed. So that's why you're going to be using the imparfait. So finally, a little bit of a recap with this video. We talked about each sentence and how it should be used. And then we went into some example sentences that should be really helpful. And they kind of describe a lot of what you're going to see.